Hello, everyone. Today we're taking a look at something very, very new that we haven't seen in the Whoop world, and that is the Carbon Fury from FPV Freedom. Comes in a bind and fly, which I have a code, and I'll put that code here. Get you $10 off any bind and fly, but you might want to build one yourself. Maybe take some Whoop parts you got, plop it in the frame, and see what you think. We're going to jump right into our flights, right off the bat. And as you can see, I've still got my HD0 Goggles 2 OSD information recorded. I did change that later on. I kind of forgot after the last video. I did move them around at first, and then I've, since then, you might not see it coming up as quickly, but anyways, I've made some adjustments to try to make everything visible so you can take that in if or not. But the main thing about this, with it being carbon fiber, one, I was concerned about the carbon fiber and damaging stuff in my house. Now, I have a crash reel. It's just a brief crash reel of some of the crashes I've had, specifically inside. There are some outside as well that I pulled out. And I was kind of taking notes of those along my path with that and trying to track down where I hit various furniture and walls and stuff like that, and then go back to those spots and look for any sort of damage. One of the things I was concerned about was with the carbon fiber and the sharp edge of carbon fiber is that it could potentially not just mar up the walls, but maybe even cut the outside paper on the sheetrock. Here in the U.S., commonly a lot of our houses are made out of sheetrock, which has a paper outside covering. But to my surprise, despite all my flights over the course of more than 2 weeks and flying this daily, I did not find that there was anything other than some brief marring that with a lick of my thumb or finger that I could just rub it away. So much like our traditional whoops when it comes to crashing inside a domesticated home like ours, that the damage that occurred was no more or different than our plastic frames. But it flies, I want to say, dramatically. Now, depending upon your flight experience and whether you've flown a lot of whoops or not, you may not feel the same way. But I felt like this one just wants to go. It wants to go fast. And that took some getting used to at first, because I think normally we kind of get used to with the air resistance of our plastic whoop frames, and this just doesn't have that. So you've got to kind of hold on to the seat of your pants for a couple flights, or maybe get used to it outside before you take off ripping around their house. Now, I will also tell you that I did fly it outside a lot, and I had different lighting because this camera is a little bit new to me. It's the WeBleed camera. WeBleed FPV, that is the full name of the company. But these parts could change, so that's something else you want to keep in mind, that this is kind of a bespoke or a boutique sort of quad and build. This is made by a member of our community that's been a long-time member of our community, working for other FPV companies here in the U.S. But that ended our flight. That was on a 320 milliamp Beta FPV Lava 2, and we did get 2 minutes and 34 seconds of, I think, going around pretty good. Moving on to our outside flight. You can see in this one I did move some of my OSD elements down, but I got the record and the signal bar kind of directly in our way of a couple beta flight elements. This is also just a random flight. I don't tend to try to pick out the best flight. Sometimes in my mind I got a flight I'm looking for just because I have a really fond memory of it. The winds in this particular case are 13 miles an hour. We are fairly protected. I always kind of say this, so it's repetitive for those that see a lot of the videos on the channel. With all the greenery and trees and fencing and houses and stuff like that. But you can hear the wind from time to time. During several of my outdoor flights, I took a secondary whoop out with me, which did kind of shorten the number of batteries I could use for this whoop, because I just wanted to feel the difference. And I can tell you without a doubt, and it makes aerodynamic sense, that with this carbon fiber frame flying outside, it just goes.
Oh,
It flies like
geez.
any other quad outside. I shouldn't say any other quad. Any other non-prop protected quad outside. And so I think that's a big benefit when it comes to people who like to enjoy outdoor whoop. That little whip-de-doo thing right there is because I had a loose battery. I thought it was funny. I went ahead, when I put this video together, decided, I'll just go ahead and leave that in. Along with the crash, the low passes along the back fence line, there was about 4 or 5 days where I just kept having crash after crash. But after I adjust the battery, we're going to finish out the pack with another minute or so of flight. Nice weather, by the way, not just the 13 miles an hour wind, but it was 63 degrees. And this day was kind of overcast, but not full overcast. It wasn't like gray overcast. It was just kind of like normal clouds. So this gives you an opportunity to take a look at the visuals on the camera. I've got kind of a bad lighting sample I'm also going to put up where it was The weather wasn't especially good, but it was calm, and I was outside flying, and we had a storm coming in, but I wanted to fly because it's just one of those days where I got home from work and I needed a couple of flights to kind of de-stress from the day and get ready to move on with the rest of the evening so I could enjoy it. So I had that recording, and I thought, why not put it together? More information is always better than less information. That's one of the many reasons why I fly quads for so many flights before I post in the reviews. I don't do one day, one afternoon. I don't fly for the purposes of only making a video. My purposes of flying is to experience these. There are some interesting one major factor, I think, in the build that I was a little bit concerned about the prop protection holding on to the base plate. Of course, you could fly this without the prop protection as well if that's something that you want to do. You're going to have to do something for the camera mounting, but you can fly it without the prop protection, I'm sure, doing a little DIY, maybe a 3D printer. But the pieces that connect the prop protection to the base plate of the quad, I was really worried that they look to be plastic of some sort. Maybe there's some sort of print that I'm just not used to. But I was worried about it getting loose over the number of crashes. But I still don't have any problems with it. It still holds firm, so that's an awesome finding in my opinion. See there, the flight finished up after some crashes and whatnot. 2 minutes and 40 seconds. This is just a sample we're jumping right into with some bad lighting. The weather in this particular case wasn't terrible, but we had some pop-up showers that were happening. But this is in between some of those pop-up showers. It's not like wet yet. The pop-up showers happen a little later in the evening. This is about 7:30. But the light is real low. The sun is kind of peeking through the sun, and when you fly at it, you're pretty much flying blind. And that's kind of why I included this sample, because even though I could fly and I was fine, I am very familiar, and I was taking certain flight paths to kind of stay out of that dead-on sun. I thought it was important to make sure that everybody saw that, when you fly directly at the sun with these little analog cameras, and I'm sure they all have this to some degree, yeah, it's not a visual that you can look right through, so you have to kind of take paths that allow you to continue to have some fun while you're flying directly at the sun. So the specs, again, I would encourage you to look at the FPVFreedom.com website. Again, I have a code if you go after a bind and fly, or you want to buy a bind and fly, that'll get you $10 off. I don't have this canopy mounted exactly like they have it mounted on the website, so that's something else to consider. I wanted some, this one felt like it was going to go, so I wanted some camera angle so I could make it go, instead of, turning this back to where the camera sat back a little bit further. So visually, you might see something different. If you turn the camera, this little tail would stick towards the front, the camera would physically move back, and I think these curl under, these struts on the back. Look at the website. So what I'm trying to say is you may see some of the prop protection in your view depending upon the camera angle you choose and your camera mounting. Of course, like a lot of these, there are these little screw holes, and you could actually, with a paper clip and a match, make more screw holes if you wanted to go even higher. I don't think you can get much lower, or you're going to risk ripping that little last hole out. This antenna was very interesting to me. I've never flown this before. I wasn't even aware Team Black Sheep made this antenna, so that's pretty cool. I thought the signal quality and clarity was good or normal for a whoop flying around my particular space using the goggles too. This is the Happy Model G2 4, I think it is. It does have the cube antenna on here, and I did find that if this wire got over closer to the cube, that my signal wasn't as good. So that's why you see in my case I have made sure this connector is kind of pointing away, so this wire stayed away from my Express LRS. I think Express LRS was interfering with this component to some degree. It has the VCI motors. Something that was interesting about the VCI motors is I thought, especially on the lower end of the throttle, but kind of for indoor flying, the throttle was, I don't want to say super sensitive. Maybe a better way of describing it is very responsive. It wasn't soft or anything like that. But also, these motors aren't as efficient as other motors that we have on the market. Say, I think the Happy Model motors are the noisiest and sound like they're going to explode, but they're also some of the most efficient motors that we have for whoops on the market. They're 0702s, by the way. And then we've got the ultralight HQ props, I believe. Again, check out the specs on the website to be certain of everything that you would be ordering, because things could change. They took the back connector off the BT20 to save some weight. And again, just to make sure you see that BT2 connector, which is compatible with the A30 G&B batteries as well. And for most of my flights, I have been using the Beta FPV Lava 2 batteries. More recently, since I got these Weebleed FPV 420s, I think they're 420s, right? They're not 420s, 320s. Maybe they're 340s. I forget now. 340, geez, it's right there printed. Let's see if I can get that in the camera. See there on the right side, top line, 340. So my flight times so far have been very, very similar between these two, but both BT20 compatible. Something with these batteries that I did notice, and you'll see it a little bit, is that you have to be careful with the prop protection just being this carbon fiber, which they do make a thinner one, which for us human sort of flyers, I don't recommend the thinner one, because obviously I broke it twice. I kept flying it after the first breakage, and then I broke another one. These were on outside flights, and I did crash in both cases up against the house or the cabana area, and then it hit the cement. I don't know if it broke against the house or if it broke against the cabana in this particular case. So this is the thicker one. They also, in there, I think it's the racing style, it comes with this sort of camera mount. It's kind of exposed because they're really wanting to drive down the weight for those elite racers. So I think if you're someone who's not a superhero whooper, the freestyle version that has the thicker carbon fiber plate and a 3D printed mount is the way to go. But I did notice that originally this pigtail came between. It came out, what's a good way of showing it? It just kind of came out straight down here, and it would get in my prop line on some crashes, not just with this type of connector, but with also this connector. So that's why I took the screws out, lifted that up, and then rerouted this over the top. That solved that issue for me. That could be a one-off. They could be changing how they put these together. That's just something that I noted. So they are using non-metal screws here on the bottom. This seems like a rubber band, but I get the feeling it's some sort of print. No, I don't know if it shows. I don't know, for a rubber band and all the crashing that I did, I kind of thought it was remarkable that it didn't break once. I mean, this has got to have 60 plus flights on it. It's just got to at this point. So I would venture to guess it's got well over that. Do note that the camera is soldered onto the bottom of the board here. So that's no connectors, so another weight savings. You know, again, this is an elite sort of whoop, I would say, bespoke, boutique sort of build. But this was the bit that I was talking about during the flight that I was really surprised that this did not start at some point to give me troubles. I thought with the banging around, the screw would kind of hollow this piece out and it would start to, you know, wiggle loose. But, you know, in all four cases, it's still solid on there. It's not wiggling around. So whatever that is made of, or wherever they sourced this, it's pretty remarkable. I was pleasantly surprised with that particular piece after I got it and kind of expected it out of the box, which it does come with a somewhat interesting box. It has FPV Freedom with a little mountain scene. And is that some sort of tower, or is that a person in the back? Always been trying to sort that out. But a fun little box. It also comes with 2 stickers. But outside of the actual design and carbon fiber, I thought this was the most remarkable thing in my initial thoughts. And here we are 2-3 weeks later in my flying. Let's weigh it up, because my weight is going to be a little bit different than the weight you're going to see on the website. So it'll give you another point of reference. Also, the double-sided tape, that is not something that they provided me. That originally, again, the camera was in here and they had this black sort of tape, and it held the antenna very neatly around the camera lens, kind of on the back side. Near the PCB, but still on the lens around there. So it was much more tidy than what you see in front of you. But the weight, as I've got it, 16.08 grams. Now, some of these parts I sent to me because this was sent for review, but I paid for it, so take that for what it's worth. We got some extra standoff bits. We got an extra camera mount, and this mount would be for the bottom, of course. You have where your USB port would go. I'm not sure if they're moving towards these yet or not. I haven't used them, of course, but it gives you an idea of what you might expect. Some sort of print that they've designed looking to hold on to batteries. I think you'd probably want this if you really wanted your quad, especially to sit flat, because sometimes, especially when you're flying batteries with pigtails, it might sit, at a slight angle. Also got some extra metal screws, so if you knock some motors loose with the plastics, and we have some black screws to hold the top plate down and through the extra standoffs as well. They did send an extra camera mount, but I went with red. Why, I don't really know. Maybe it was not sitting on top of the box. So as is the case with a lot of these kind of boutique or bespoke builds, you are going to find the cost more than those, really cheap analog whoops out there. Not to rationalize it, but when I think about these particular things, these specific builds, is you have to, in some ways, I account for the time. The time to source all the materials, to get all the materials, to pay shipping costs, to pay taxes on all those materials before they get in. And one of the things that surprised me about these, now, this isn't just a completely unheard of design as far as carbon fiber on a whoops. If you look back on the channel many, 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 many years ago, and I actually kind of featured it in a video not that long ago from Winder Wonderworks. I think I'm saying that right. I don't believe it's Vinder. I think it's Winder Wonderworks. They had the swirly, which was a kind of a bigger version of this, and it was many years ago. Matter of fact, we didn't even have all-in-ones at that time. And so it was kind of the first carbon fiber whoop that I can remember from 6-7 years ago, maybe even 8 at this point. So this design, and when I look at this carbon fiber, when you don't print straight lines, there is an awful lot of waste, in my opinion, when it comes to your carbon fiber sheet. You lose everything in the middle, you lose everything between each whoop, so you can only line up your next cut on the carbon fiber on the outside of this. And you probably need a couple of millimeters of clearance. So there's another expense that I thought of when designing something like this. It's got to be accounted for. Whether you agree or whether you're just going to, continue to buy the cheapest you can, which I understand, because if you've only got so much money, you have to spend where you choose your money. But sometimes I hear from a lot of folks out there about how stuff is too expensive. Everything is too expensive. Gas, groceries, bread, everything's too expensive. But when it comes to our quads and these specialized bespoke builds, I think we kind of have to account for more than just the bottom line cost, because if you're going to go bottom line cost, you can get it from those bottom line sources and, hope that everything works out all right. But this is from FPV Freedom. It's the Carbon Fury, excuse me. They also have some other products on their website that you might be interested in. An open prop, I believe it's a 2-inch 2S. Which is one of my favorites. You know that. I talk about 2-inch 2S all the time on this channel. Nice and small, but still give you that sense of big power. Even though I haven't flown 5-inch quads in a long time, it makes me feel like I got that 5-inch power. But this was a lot of fun. Very interesting design. I can tell you that I think in my particular case, I have to recommend this thicker prop version 1 because I did break the other one. So if you're a mortal like me, or you're maybe just getting started in FPV and are just interested in something like this, get the thicker prop guarded one. I believe it's called the Freestyle on the website, because that's going to hold up. At least it did for me in my crashes. And that includes crashes outside that hopefully I've been playing somewhere along the line, and crashing into cement and stuff like that. And everything has stayed perfectly rock solid. I'm pleasantly pleased with the durability and the fact that it didn't mark up my house and make my wife hate my indoor flying, because that's pretty important to me. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise about the Carbon Fury from Fury from FPV Freedom, please let me know in the comments section below. Don't forget that code if you're interested for the Bind and Fly $10 off. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.